Hi and welcome to tutorial 124, and I had a question from a GoalPass member, and he asked, how can we make it so that text labels stay a fixed distance from a low or a bar, for example. So if you see what I mean here on the chart, we've got actually my program 25, and as we scroll back, you'll notice that the labels actually are moving. So they're a small amount here, but then if we go a little bit to the left, they get less, and then if we go to the right, that distance increases. In actual fact, the price levels are exactly the same, but the scale of the chart is changing, and that is because if we just go to format symbol, we'll see that under scaling, we've got the automatic scale range based on the data range on the screen. So what he was asking was, how can we have the label a fixed number of pixels irrespective of the scale? And that's what I've done in this tutorial. So what I'm going to do is just go to the analysis techniques, turn off program 25 and turn on program 124. You should now see, as I go backwards and forwards, that those labels stay pretty much the same number of pixels away from the bars that they're referring to. They've also got a number there, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to the program, and I'll try and explain my way through it, how I've done this. Not exactly totally simple at the moment in TradeStation 9.5, and incidentally this is a TradeStation only tutorial. This won't work with multi-chart. So we've set up the namespaces, included the namespaces, or rather using the namespaces. We've got our variables, and if you do want to download this, it is available for download if you want to save yourself some typing. So a couple of bits of housekeeping to start with. In the initialize component, we do two things. We initialize, or rather instantiate, a charting host, and we instantiate a timer. And within the charting host, we're using two event handlers, one for initial update, one for on size, and with the timer we're using a event handler for the timer elapsed. And incidentally, if you want an easier way of creating these things, you can go to Toolbox, double click on charting host, and then within the properties you can set up the event handlers. And within the event handler for the charting host, we calculate the chart height, and then we create this thing called original scale factor. And what I do is divide the chart height by the difference between the highest displayed price, the lowest displayed price. And that is effectively saying how many pixels is each unit of price taking up on the initial chart. And then what we're going to do is just go down to the part of the program which originally draws the text on the chart, and what we're doing is looking for hammers using the TradeStation standard function. And when we get a hammer, what we do is we draw a text label on the chart. Now I mentioned the text included in that just a moment ago, but let's just look at the text label create, and we do this using the bn point create. And we're doing that at the bar, which is essentially the current bar, but because we have to adjust between the bar numbering on the sort of legacy TradeStation and the bar numbering required from bn point, we have to add to that max bars back and delete one. And then the number that you were seeing on the chart, that is actually, or rather, sorry, the first part is the bar. The second part is where we're putting that, and we're putting that at a low minus 4 times tick. I've just set an arbitrary number of 4 ticks. But then the tags that we're including is actually the value that we've got here, 4 times tick. So that is the initial value on the chart, and we're doing that to 2 decimal places. Okay, so let's just go back up to the rest of the program. So we've talked about the initialized components, we've talked about the initial update. The other thing that we do is when we change the size of the chart, we then also recalculate the scale factor. Now the original scale factor calculated up here is called original scale factor. That's the one that we get when we first see this thing on the chart. The new one is the one that we get when we move the chart in some way, or rather we change the size of the screen, or we scroll backwards and forwards. What we do is we feed a value into a method which I've called move text, and the value is similar to the value that we just used, and the value we feed is 4 times tick, and then we multiply it by a factor, and that is the original scale factor. In other words, that calculation I showed you right at the beginning here, chart height divided by the difference in price on the chart, divided by the scale factor, and that is the value that we've just calculated here. That value is fed into a method, and let's just quickly look through the method. So the method expects a double input, and what it does each time it runs, it instantiates a vector, and into that vector it will store the text labels that are on the chart, and we get those by using text object.items. And if you just right click on the text object, you'll get some more information about that. Then we go through each one of those text objects. What we do is we modify first of all, we store the label in a temporary text label. So that is a text label object. And then we change the string in the text label object, and we change it to the low of the bar number, minus the temp text label dot point value as type be at point dot bar number. So that gets the bar number from the object we're looking at, and we have to deduct it from bar number to make sure that it conforms with how many bars ago. And then we also have to deduct from that minus max bars back and plus 1. And then from that value, which is a low at that many bars ago, we take away new dist is the value that we're passing in to the move text. And then as far as the BN point of the text label that we're going to be moving, create that, we use again the point value as type BN point at bar number as we did before, and then we store in that the low, essentially the value that I've just described above, minus of course the new dist as type double. And we have to be very careful about typing, because it's very easy to get errors. And what I mean by typing is using as type. Just scroll across, you'll see here that use as type double. And then having created a new BN point, we then change the BN point for the text label, and we do that using .set point value, and we input the temp BN point, which is the value here that we've just created. The other thing that we do is we're using the timer. We're trying to determine if we have scrolled the chart, and we can do that by using the get app info left displayed date time. And what we do is lower down the program, we store that in a variable last left value. And what we essentially say is if this is different, in other words, if it has changed between now and in this case when the timer last run, then we know that we've scrolled the chart. And if that is the case, we recalculate the scale factor and call the move text method again. The other way that we do that is that will run when the timer expires. This will also run for each tick. It's the same syntax, except for the if we're doing it by each tick, then we record the value of left display date time lower down the program, so that is stored each tick and then compared the next tick. So let's go back to the chart, and what I'm going to do is turn on the print log, because I did include a few print statements in the program, as you may have seen. But if we go along here, you'll see that those distances don't really change, but actually the numbers are changing, because that is telling us that in order to keep them a fixed number of pixels away from where they were, that value is changing as we go along. And what we're also seeing here is the scale factor changing as well. And these will also change if we change the size of the chart. So if I just move that down, you'll see that again those things are recalculating, and they're moving and changing the values. Let me just go up and see if we can, so you can see those numbers changing. Anyway, this program will be available for download if you're interested. Otherwise, you can go back and follow the program in this video. Well, anyway, I hope you will find this useful. Thank you.